Let's go. Welcome, everyone. This is the first episode of The Bench Mob. We are The Bench Mob. I am your host, John from Guam, or my real name's Jonathan Diego, of course, otherwise known as John from Guam. Here with me are three of my close friends, Tyler Prime, Matthew Tonis, and Gavin Shaw. Welcome, guys.
How's it going, Johnny?
It's a nice night, you know. We are taping this on, actually, sort of like Thursday night, Friday morning-ish, March 20th, March 21st. And, so, guys, tell me a little bit about yourselves and your past basketball careers.
All right, I'll start this thing off. My basketball career has been limited. Most of my friends growing up were short in stature, but high on basketball ability, which led to me playing in the post a lot of the time and playing remember that play with Kevin McHale and Kurt Rambis, where Kevin McHale tackled Kurt Rambis?
The clothesline.
That was me most of the time. I was just a physical presence down low. I played in one official organized league in which I scored, I believe, 6 points that season, including a buzzer beater, which made us lose by 22 instead of 24, and 4 free throws.
Nice.
Well done.
All right. Well,
Gavin Shaw, the pride of New York.
only
Face of New York.
slightly more illustrious basketball career. I spent my development years honing my game at the Jewish Community Center, my local Jewish Community Center. Very top-notch competition there. Just athletes on athletes. And then, I did play quite a bit in the streets of New York, so...
Oh, Sony!
Yeah,
Nice.
so that gave me a little bit of toughness. I developed, to describe my game, have a bit of a post game, use some jump hooks, a couple counter moves.
I liken you to the white...
Not
Jewish
super
American.
developed. I'd say my best skill is definitely my passing, especially with contact.
Not the sky hook?
I mean, the sky.
As an observer, I think...
Sky hook's a close second, but I think I have the ability to occasionally wow with my passes, which you can't say about anything else I do athletically, unless it's how inept it is. Some people are shocked by that.
That's how your nickname
Yeah,
started.
so solid jump shot as well. But then that's about the highest level of basketball I played. I went to a summer camp called Basketball City for a couple of years. Won 2 titles.
Oh, also, I'd just like to throw in, I once, at a Jewish camp, I once had a quadruple double. I had 15 points, 12 assists, 20 rebounds, and 14 turnovers.
Did you get a plaque after the game?
I did not, but I was...
We'll make you one.
People likened me to the Jewish LeBron James after that game.
Nice.
I scored almost... I was
Mixed with Rudy Gay's of ball handling.
It was the biggest athletic accomplishment of my life. Personally, I will hold this game near and dear to my heart for the remainder of my days.
Now, Tyler, tell us a nice story
All right.
about champions.
So, I have a little bit of basketball experience. I played for my high school back in the day, and I was fortunate enough to win a New York State Class C basketball championship. Can't say I did too much of that. I'm going to have to give a shout-out to Joel Winkowski for bringing me that ring.
Hashtag
I really
bring
appreciate
Joel
it.
to ASU.
Bring Joel to ASU.
Hashtag big fan of Ethan Winkowski.
Yes,
I don't know.
shout out to Ethan.
I don't know
Only
why
better.
hashtagged that, John.
I shouldn't have.
But anyways, I'd have to say, though, the highlight of my basketball career is here at Arizona State as an active member of the M&G Ballers.
Yes.
It was a rough inaugural season. One win on the year.
Yes,
Thank
and
you,
that was by
Cam.
forfeit.
We didn't have to say that, but
That's why we're the bench mob.
It was implied.
but yes, this is why we're the bench mob. But we're going to come back with a vengeance next season. So
And new coach Matthew Tonis.
yes,
correct.
Yes. We liken him to the Red Auerbach.
Presided over our one.
Unfortunately, we lost Phil Jackson to the Knicks, but maybe once I come back.
Oh, man. That was
But
a rough-
anyways.
No,
that was a
because
rough one
before
for the
you-
M&G
All right,
Ballers.
boys, rounding it out for me. I grew up playing basketball in my front yard. Thanks, shout out to my dad for purchasing my only basketball rim. And I played middle school basketball. Pretty much been a bench warmer from middle school until high school. I still had a lot of fun, made a lot of friends, and learned a lot from my coaches. I've been blessed to have some pretty awesome coaches in my life. And I've also been blessed to have been part of a high school program that my class, and I feel like my class and I and the class before us, the class of 2012, helped bring back this our high school's basketball program back into prominence, the Father Duenas Friars, and which resulted in this year the team winning their first championship in 8 years.
Can we call it a state championship? What do we call it?
It's an all-island championship.
territory
Okay.
I'm proud to practice with those
Territorial
guys.
Cup.
I liken this year's FD championship team to the 2009 Los Angeles Lakers. In any other
fair.
year, they probably, I don't know how they would have fared, but they took advantage of the right time. They were at the right time in the right place. They made the right plays at the right time. Pretty much everything fell into place perfectly for them. And
That comparison makes me sad.
well, the 2000. I said 2009.
Oh,
not
okay, 2009
I said 2009 because of the
Right,
Of course,
the,
yeah.
the Dwight Howard. yes.
One Kevin Garnett injury away from another Lakers Boston final. And anyways, we will move into or actually, just to clear for the audience, this is the reason why we're called the Bench Mob, because of our unique playing experiences. We all come together, talk about basketball. It's a unifying force amongst our friendship. And now we will move on into our first segment, which is I'm going to pose a question to these three gentlemen right here. I want you guys to pick one storyline from this NBA season and elaborate on why this storyline has either affected you, or you think it's the best of the season, or something that people should be aware of. Just ramble on, gentlemen. Matthew, I think.
All right, I'll take this one.
I'll pass it to you.
As all of us are a new member to the Phoenix community, we all saw coming into the season the Phoenix Suns, as Bill Simmons and Jalen Rose described it. I believe they described it as the worst collection of talent, maybe in NBA
And the
history.
76ers exist, so
Right.
that's not good.
No. This is a league where the Bucks and 76ers are still a thing. So the Suns turning it around. We mocked the slogan "Ignite
Oh
the
my
Future"
gosh.
before the season.
I remember likening Jeff Hornacek to being better than half of his starting lineup, and if he put on a jersey, he could probably still play and score 30 points.
At
Yeah.
the beginning of the year, we said you had a better chance of surviving a fall off a skyscraper than the
Yes.
Suns making the playoffs.
Exactly. And
But
now-
here we are.
Here we are.
A game and a half out.
Game and a half out. The Phoenix Suns, led by point guard extraordinaire Goran Dragic,
And also point guard extraordinaire Eric Bledsoe.
comeback
As of late.
player of the year, if that's a thing in the NBA.
we'll make it a thing.
Yeah, Gerald Green, as well as bench production
Gerald,
from
what did Gerald Green come back from? He would never.
The D
Don't
League.
you have to have a height? Okay,
D
well, I
League.
guess.
Well,
came-
shedding his label as just a dunk machine and moving on to becoming sort of a more complete
An
scorer.
erratic
Chad
score.
Pennington
Yeah.
won comeback player of the
Yeah.
year in the NFL. Gerald Green can do it.
But this is a
in the
basketball
NBA.
show, so we digress.
Right. I
That's
digress.
another
You don't say that name here.
Drafted.
But the total package that is the Phoenix Suns this year has to be the top story in the NBA.
All right. My personal pick for the top story is the huge discrepancy between the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. At this point, it's absolutely ridiculous that we need to do it. I understand it for scheduling purposes, but you're essentially doubling down on punishing the Western teams when you make them play inevitably tougher squads, but just by being in the West, which is necessary because of geography. But then you double that when you also hurt them seeding-wise because their records are only compared to those Western teams, and they built up better records playing harder teams. So really everything they do is so much more impressive. And a team like the Suns, who Tonis just mentioned, incredible season, really good team, fun to watch, could very well end up not making the playoffs when in the Eastern Conference they'd be the 3 seed. So I think that whole system needs to be fixed.
Also, quick shout out to Ben Marjot, who just tweeted, quote unquote, literally hearing every word of mine, Sean, and Gavin Shaw's conversation from the room over right now. Hashtag TP Walls. Sorry, Ben, we'll try to keep it down.
Sorry, Ben. We're working on that. It's just
Mostly my fault then. I'm sorry.
we apologize. And anyways, Mr. Prime.
Okay, my story of the year would be the David Stern leaving his position as the commissioner and the incoming commissioner Adam Silver taking office, and maybe some changes that he'll bring. I don't know if his style's going to be any different, or
Specifically the uniforms.
the uniforms.
Oh, yes.
As of today, today he was quoted saying, when asked about ads on the uniforms, said that it will definitely happen, but then digressed and said most likely within the next 5 years.
People have noted that the NBA, in terms of the uniforms, now that they're adding sleeves also, and ads, that the NBA uniforms will become like that of the English Premier League
Or WNBA.
or the WNBA, like on the other side of the pond, the English Premier League, who have their uniforms. Some ad logos are bigger than the actual team logo. a la Chelsea or Manchester United. However, it's not I don't think it's an equal comparison because in the Premier League they don't have commercial breaks every 5.5 minutes of action.
Not to go too far into this, but I understand that the NBA is a business and their ultimate goal is to generate as much money as possible. But at a certain point, you have to give back to the fans that make it such a profitable enterprise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And doing this, it cheapens the product, I think.
It really makes me cringe. Like, I think of all the jerseys I've ever owned and then think of there being, like, McDonald's golden
I would
arches
hate
slapped
it.
on it, and then it just makes me hurt.
And the NBA, you know, I think
better than that.
we can all agree that it's like
Like to think.
there's no like want of like shortage of revenue if this doesn't happen. They're already raking
LeBron
in.
needs a new yacht, John. Don't be so heartless.
He's already bought part of Liverpool. I don't know how much money
I think the revenue from those Samsung phone commercials, I think we could cover a new yacht. Him and Kevin Hart, you know.
At the very least, there's been some funny jokes that come out of this, like the Sacramento Burger Kings, the New York Nick Haynes Knickerboxers. So I mean, there's some potential for some good puns, but overall,
maybe a return to Seattle for an NBA team.
But
Sure, why not? The Seattle Macklemores.
One in defense of Adam Silver, I think from the general consensus among NBA writers and just people who work in the NBA is that the guy's a really forward-thinking individual. He's willing to consider things like changing the draft lottery. They're talking about a wheel system in which tanking would basically be eliminated by disincentivizing losing. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff he's looking into. I think there are definitely some positives in taking over. That being said, David Stern left an incredible legacy, and it's going to be tough for Silver to live up to it.
And for those interested in the whole Adam Silver wheel possible draft thing, I read an article on Grantland by Zach Lowe, great NBA writer, about the potential pros and cons of a wheel and how it should be handled. If you're interested, you can go on Grantland and look that up. But Grantland is a great site that has pretty much inspired a lot of what we talk about here.
I think before we move on, Zach Lowe, if you're listening, Bambi is a huge fan.
Yes, he would like to meet you. We would all like to meet you.
If we run into each other,
Also,
coffee or something.
Also, if loyal listener,
I don't want to put a name on it.
If loyal listener to Tyler and John's DJ Shift's Ryan McDonough is listening. Well, right, of course.
Everyone.
Ryan McDonough, you've done a fantastic job this year.
Keep it up.
Keep it up.
Don't screw
Please.
up before draft picks. It's hard to do.
Congratulations, you have beaten Larry Bird in a trade scenario. Who would have thought? He's
Not many people have ever beaten Larry Bird one-on-one.
He wins
Ryan McDonough,
everything.
you've done it.
You've done it through by trading Louis Scola for Joe Green and Miles Plumlee. And anyways, we'll move on to our next segment here with Game of the Week that we are looking most forward to. And guys, what do you have for me? Or the audience as well?
I'll take this one first. The Grizzlies have a tough weekend. They are playing this weekend both the Heat and the Pacers. I'm looking forward more to the Heat game. The Heat coming off a tough loss to the Celtics. Keep in mind it was a LeBron-less Heat team, but it's still a loss to a team that is currently deep in the tank mode.
Feat Kelly Olynyk.
Yes, featuring
The Olynyk Clinic.
Big Kelly Olynyk guy.
Yeah, and the Grizzlies playing both the Heat and the Pacers this weekend. As you mentioned, those teams aren't giving up yet. They might be in the first and second spot, but they can still beat each other out for that first seed. So they'll still be playing, and the Grizzlies sure have to be playing all out right now because they have the Suns hot on their tails, and the Timberwolves are fading, but they could still theoretically get there. So they still need to get some wins. So
Right.
it's going to be some two hard-fought games.
The Grizzlies are currently 40-27. Currently tied with Dallas in terms of games behind. The leader, the Spurs in the West, is on the game and a half back of the Mavericks and Grizzlies. So the Grizzlies got to win at least one of these two games and hope the Suns lose at least one so they can keep their advantage in the West.
Right, and for my game, I'd like to say San Antonio Golden State, obviously incredible playoff series last year. Golden State almost went up 2-0 on the eventual NBA finalist Spurs. Huge game for Golden State because they're currently only 1.5 games behind a struggling Portland team for the 5th seed. And I think it's really important for them that they get there because the way LA has been playing, I think the Clippers have now ascended into a top-tier title spot. Anyways, just for the intricacies of that game, Tim Duncan, Stephen Curry, so many stars. We only have so many more chances to see Duncan play in significant scenarios. Manu Ginobili's been back, been much more consistent of late. The Spurs quietly, they had that horrible, something like 1-10 against the top 10 teams in the NBA earlier in the year. And recently, they've really been playing well. They're actually quietly have the best record in the league at this point. So that's a game between two teams that want to keep winning and are ultimately good enough to do it.
Also, shout out to close personal friend Kawhi Leonard for continuing his production from last year.
A close personal friend. We met him one time.
Even though, I took a selfie with the guy.
Danny Green hates me.
But anyways, shout out. Even though Greg Popovich hasn't given him, or has pretty much given him the same amount of touches as last year in terms of the offense but the offense still runs mostly through Duncan and Parker and Ginobili. He's still been able to make the most of it. He fills up the stat sheet in terms of rebounds, points, assists, and even blocks and steals. And I feel like he is definitely a future star in the making once Duncan and Parker and Ginobili move on.
It's a little surprising, though, that he didn't ascend this year, because in that series against the Heat, he was so good. And a lot of people speculated because against the Heat, Spurs couldn't play Thiago Splitter. Leonard was playing that small ball four, and he might ultimately be better fitted in that scenario, at least offensively. And I think he's strong enough defensively to hold up in that spot. So that's interesting to see where his career goes. I definitely agree with you. I think he's still a star potential.
Popovich definitely knows what he's doing when it comes to developing talent such as Kawhi Leonard in a system,
I'd like to see him play Kawhi with more bench-heavy units just to see if he could feasibly be a number one option. I don't think his game is quite varied enough for that yet.
Kind of like how Frank Vogel does it with Lance Stevenson in Indiana over there.
All right. Digressing from that, Tyler, I believe you have a game of the week.
Yes, my game of the week will be a thriller, to be sure. The Knicks square off against the 76ers this Friday.
Ooh.
And battle of once cellar dweller New York Knicks, now playoff contender, and the streaking 76ers, and streaking in a terrible direction.
Nope.
I believe they've lost, 21 in a row.
Sounds about right.
And going for their 22nd against the Knicks, who are going for their 8th in a row in the win column. You can't make this kind of stuff up.
Currently, the Knicks are 28-40, but only 4 games back of a playoff spot.
From the Hawks.
I've looked at it, and the Hawks don't have a particularly hard schedule down the stretch.
Well, they do play our Suns. They do have a game left.
That's the one tough one.
Suns for them last.
They have a couple more tough games, but I think I saw Milwaukee more than once, which isn't a good sign for the Knicks playoff. So regardless, I'm really impressed with how the Knicks have played of late. Looking a lot like they did last year, actually moving the ball, shocker. Carmelo saying things like, I just pass it to the open guy, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's been a revelation based on some of the ISO ball we've seen this year. Somewhat competent defense. I love watching the Knicks.
And Jackson, do you think that's just the mindset? Was that all it needed to happen?
I think J.R. Smith finally realized that they're playing real basketball. I think that's what happened.
Him and Raymond Felton must have sat together and said, you know what?
Raymond's realizing he's playing his last few games of basketball.
Raymond's realizing he needs to shoot the ball instead of trying to just shoot.
And also, shout out to Tim Hardaway Jr.
Poor Raymondo.
Leading rookies in
Raymond,
3-point percentage.
I think you're a great guy. Just poor decision.
Hey, I'm sorry you can't make that trip to Toronto. That's real.
He said he was just angry because people have been criticizing him for his weight when he thinks it's relatively in check, which isn't a good term to describe an NBA player's fitness level, but okay.
It's the Knicks. What do you
The Knicks have been known for having a notoriously out-of-shape players.
Eddie
Curry, a la old Zach Randolph.
Oh, Zach Randolph.
Jail Zebo from the Jailblazer days.
Yeah.
Before he
Zebo before he cared. Yeah, before he reformed.
before Marcus
He's an upstanding citizen. Yeah, Marcus All single-handedly saved him.
So be sure to tune into that one. Knicks 76ers, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And,
all right, boys. Quite the interesting discussion we've had. And we'd like to thank everyone who's taken the time to listen to us. We will be back again.
At some point.
At some point in time. We like to say...
When. Well, neither do you.
I know. We like to
be
think...
afraid.
We like to think we're a weekly podcast. It'll most likely be bi-weekly or whenever we're pretty much... We have a night where we don't have a lot of homework. We'll keep you guys in tune. Future segments will probably include... next time we'll probably discuss a player of the week. We'll hand out our... individual awards in terms of MVP, Sixth Man of the Year, Most Improved Player. And we'll come up with some awards of our own. And also, as the season winds down in April, we will be discussing the playoff brackets, how those will play off, like how each series, what players to look out for. And also, as we continue to move on to our potential goal of having a show on the Blaze, we'd like to thank all of you for your support and know that So we are the Bench Mob.
Quick self promotion. I'd like everyone listening to also tune into Tonus's and I's and Tyler's podcast,
the Lounge podcast.
Yeah,
I will be a guest
John
in
will
2
be
weeks.
heavily featured in a couple of weeks. We'll talk some NBA with him. We're two podcasts are kind of synonymous. I'd say they're sister podcasts. Even I'd be okay going that far.
I wouldn't mind either. Yeah, it's
So we're going to promote that on this, that on that, basically. But
Fireside chats got to stick together.
both podcasts are essentially going to be promoting the other podcast. That's the number one goal.
in unison with Tyler's.
And Close Corner.
and also Tyler's and I's DJ shifts on the Blaze.
Of course.
And bottom of the sixth.
Ryan McDonald listens. You should too.
Even Michael Bloom, the legendary Stephen Fleming lookalike.
Yes.
Look it up. Anyways, any other words, Tyler?
Thanks for joining us. We hope you'll miss us until our next podcast.
Go to bed, Bieber.
Once again, be afraid.
We'll be back.